Service is available too. Call 01733 566 320 or visit 2020buffet.co.uk. 2020 World Buffet, 35 New Road, Peterborough, PE1 1FJ.
If you have an idea for a show and want to get involved, email info.
Assalamu alaikum, good evening, and thank you for tuning in to Wealth Made Simple on Salam Radio on 106.2 FM. I'm your host Shaz Nawaz, and my co-pilot Kieron isn't here with me today, so I'll be keeping you company for the next hour. As always, welcome your participation. You can call us on 01733 602 133, text on 07411 191 062, or comment on any of the live streams on Facebook, YouTube, X, formerly Twitter, or Twitch. And by all means, get involved, ask questions, share your observations so that we can all learn from each other. This week on Wealth Made Simple, I will be sharing with you some of the top traits and habits of wealthy people. And what's really important for this conversation is that, in my experience, I'd say 90% of success is about mindset and habits, and 10% is about implementation of your goals and activities. Because once the mindset is right, and with the mindset you then fix the key habits, once you've got that sorted, you're then more likely to do the things that you need to do. Whereas most people, with the mindset that they may have, or some people, the mindset they may have is focused on either being unable to achieve things, sometimes perhaps being negative, sometimes perhaps thinking about the downsides too much, and sometimes dwelling too much in the past and how things have gone wrong. Whereas a positive or a growth mindset is all about learning, development, improvement, thinking tomorrow is and will be a better day than today and the past. So it's a very different approach to take, and to get there, it's a journey. This doesn't happen overnight because we're all a product of our own experiences, education, environment, upbringing, so on and so forth. So to undo those things and create new habits is easier said than done. And this takes a long time, but those who are committed to improving, changing, wanting to be more successful, whatever that may mean to everybody individually, will do things. Those who don't will sit there and will look for 101 excuses for why things can't be done, and will always just sit there and complain. And I'm sure because you've tuned into this episode, you are one of the people who wants to have a positive mindset and wants to improve, increase, and have a more healthy and wealthy lifestyle. So with that, let's get cracking with the key habits and traits of successful and wealthy people. The first one, which I think is extremely important, is they have single goal focus. And some people refer to this as laser focus, because successful people understand they can't do everything. They also understand that they need to prioritize the really important things that only they can do, and the other things they either let go of or they delegate. Whereas the majority of people tend to have a long to-do list or do list, and it just keeps adding on and on and on in terms of more tasks being added on, and they can never catch up. That's because they are doing the tasks which are important, not so important, urgent, not so urgent, and some are, for want of a better expression, below their pay grade, but they just do them because either they're used to doing them, or they think it takes too long to train somebody else up, or there's some other reason where they maybe can't afford to employ somebody to do those tasks. Whatever the reason may be, they are overwhelmed by having too many things to do. So I think it's incredibly important to be single-minded and have a single focus on the things that you really want to achieve, or it could be just the one thing that you want to achieve. And with that, I'm going to link that with what Warren Buffett used to do and talk about, which is the 5-25 rule. And to simplify it, he talked about listing out your top 25 goals and then prioritizing them from 1 to 25, 1 being the most important to 25 being the least important. And then it says the top 5, keep those, the other 20, get rid of them. And just focus on those 5 alone, because then it gives you a clear focus, a clear direction, and you know exactly what you're looking to achieve. And that tends to work well. So if you're looking to achieve different goals, prioritize them and see which ones are most important to you, and then focus on those. So that's a good way to move forward. And other people that I know will either focus on one thing, or what they will do is have 3 things that they focus on. And sometimes these are specific goals. Sometimes these are things which are functions. So they might have a keen interest on sales, on marketing, on people development in their company. So they'll take charge of those 3 functions or departments, and then leave the others to their team members. So it depends on how you want to see this in terms of the overall vision and direction, or do you want to get more into the detail and focus on certain activities? That's obviously totally up to you, and every business is different, every person is different. So you need to obviously decide what is most important to you at this particular time. Linked with that thing that we're talking about, Warren Buffett, successful people also invest carefully. So they make very careful investment choices, which focuses on opportunities and the best potential return. And obviously this depends on what the investment activity or goal is. Are you investing in gold? Are you investing in silver? Are you investing in property? Are you investing in the stock market? Are you investing in somebody else, something else? And everybody has different goals and aspirations towards that. But I think it's incredibly important that you focus very carefully on your investments. Let me give you an example. Working obviously a lot in the world of property, you have some people who will buy, let's talk about commercial property. They'll buy commercial property and they won't always pay too much attention to the rental income, because they just want to buy a property because they want to increase their portfolio. And they might get a 5% return, 6% return, 7%, so on and so forth. Yet the smart people, that I've seen, will have a very clear number in terms of the return on investment they want every single year. And some will focus on minimum 10%. Others I've seen work on 12.5, 15, sometimes even 20. Now, with 20, you've got to carve up a property to increase the rental income. But I think 10 to 15% is achievable as long as you're smart about the whole thing. And this is where you make your money work harder for you. Because think about it, if you buy a property for £20,000 and you're not diligent about the return in terms of the rental income, and you're on a 5% return, your rental income is £10,000 per year. If you're smart about it and you think, I'm looking for a 15% return, then your rental income will be 30,000. Big difference between 10 and 30. And there's lots of deals available out there, by the way, which give you a higher return. Alongside that, then obviously you can think about how can I carve the property up, change it around, break it into different sections to increase the rental income, or to change the layout, or to extend a property. But it obviously depends on your perspective. We end up achieving what we set out to achieve in the first place, although those who don't set out to achieve much in the first place end up achieving less, if that makes sense. So have a very clear priority in terms of the investments you want to make and the return that you want to achieve. Because if you don't have that in place, then more often than not, like most people, you'll end up achieving maybe 1 or 2 good returns, depending on how many properties you have. But for the majority, it will be average to mediocre return. So make sure that you make your investments work hard for you, because it's important. Alongside that, successful and wealthy people teach success habits. So that they tend to teach good daily success habits to their children, to their colleagues, to their associates, to their friends, because they understand that cultivating a positive habit can change one's outlook and can change one's life. And while they're helping and supporting others by teaching them success habits, they're also obviously giving information and value, but at the same time, they've implemented those habits themselves. So you've got to do something first before you start sharing that with other people, because you gain credibility if you have done something and then you can share that, as opposed to, let's say, somebody who isn't an early riser and says, the majority of successful people tend to wake up early, so I think you, Mr. or Miss X, should wake up early, it's good for you. And yet when the other person asks them what time, they say, oh, I'm a night owl, I'm not a morning person. Well, that isn't going to be congruent and isn't quite going to work. So if you wake up early and you share that with other people and share the benefits, other people are more likely to pay attention to you and take you as a credible source of information. So it's incredibly important that you lead from the front. Taking risks is again important, but your attitude towards risk depends on how ambitious you are and how you perceive risk. And again, this is personal to every single person. I'm not here to share with anybody what their attitude towards risk should be, because that's based on their own profile and their own view of life and what's happened in the past in terms of mistakes and things that have gone well. But generally speaking, people who tend to be more successful and wealthy tend to take calculated risks, but also they tend to take bigger risks because they understand it's a bigger upside and a bigger return. But of course, when the risk increases, then the chances of losing something also increase. So you've got to balance that out to see what works for you. And the more confidence that you gain and the more deals that you do, the more you are prone and open to taking a bit more risk because you can afford to. So again, this is different for every single person. It just depends on where you are in terms of your own journey. But one thing that most successful people do is they have usually a morning ritual. And this is different for different people. For some people, it will be wake up in the morning, say a prayer. For others, it will be read a book. For others, it will be go for a walk. Some will do yoga. Some will do meditation. Different people have different things that they tune into that just helps them to relax their mind in the morning and just make a good start. So having a morning ritual is a very good habit to have in place, and what that is obviously depends on you and how you perceive things. Something else which you ought to do in terms of looking at successful people is focus on your strengths. All too often people tend to focus on their weaknesses and what they're not good at, and sometimes they think they're not good at most things, or they think they're worse at something than they actually are. So when you focus on your strengths, then you can look at how you can leverage those strengths and achieve more. And once you know what your strengths are, then this is quite simple. Then you do things which are in line with your strengths. Those 5 into 25 that I shared, when you prioritize, you make sure you prioritize the 5 which are most important to you but are aligned with your strengths. So you can focus on those, and the rest you either don't do or you delegate. So it's important to go on that journey to understand what you're good at. And have you done that exercise? Have you sat down and looked very carefully at the things that you're good at and the things that you're not good at, And this isn't, by the way, based on, okay, get a blank piece of paper and just write things you think you're good at. This is about looking at your past and thinking, what have I achieved? How did I achieve it? And what part did I play in making that happen? And if you list the last 5, 6, 10, 15 things that you've achieved over the last, 1 to 10 years, you'll see a pattern in terms of the things that you achieved and what you did. And what you did, obviously, is based on the strengths that you have. And having that kind of focus on your strengths and understanding of your strengths is extremely important, in my view. Successful people also are very good at nailing the basics. So they understand what the basics are in terms of wealth building, wealth accumulation, saving, investing, managing their finances, managing their habits, managing their weaknesses and controlling their weaknesses. So these are kind of basic things to some extent, especially in terms of saving, investing, managing your finances, and having a focus on wealth generation and accumulation. And you need to get comfortable with this if you are serious and committed to becoming wealthy. And of course, talk is cheap, and everybody wants to, have a pay rise, and everybody wants to some extent. When I say everybody, I'm generalizing, but the majority want to have a pay rise. The majority want to be more wealthy. The majority want a bigger saving pot. They want more returns. But the hard yards and the hard miles that come with that is where most people fall short. So you'll see quite often in the new year, lots of people talk about being fit and getting ready, for their next holiday. So they'll join a gym. But after day 1, week 1, month 1, okay, quarter 1, some of them stop attending the gym simply because it's hard work. So therefore, they don't have the impetus, they don't have the energy, the enthusiasm to see things through. And wealthy people are really good, and successful people are really good at seeing things through. And that's easier said than done, but that obviously depends on your own drive and your commitment. And if you really want to do something, like I've said before, you'll find a way of doing it. If you don't want to do something, you'll find 10 excuses for why you ought not to do it. And that obviously just depends on how you are as a person. Personal responsibility is also extremely important, and this will differentiate you from the majority, because the majority tend to blame circumstances, the situation, the environment, the economic climate, and more often than not, other people for their lack of achievement, for their shortcomings. Because remember, it's always somebody else's fault, isn't it? Whereas those who are successful and are wealthy will take responsibility for everything that happens in their life. I think it was Earl Nightingale who said, "We're all self-made. It's only the rich who admit it." So wherever we are in life, in terms of our circumstances, a huge part of that is determined by the choices we've made. Not 100%, because there are other factors which we have no control over, but more often than not, there's enough scope there for you in terms of the choices that you've made, in terms of taking responsibility for your situation. And if you take responsibility and you are accountable to yourself, you'll be more determined, you'll be more focused, and you'll achieve more. But if you point fingers at other people or other circumstances, then you are less likely to achieve. So take responsibility for everything. Have broad shoulders, and if something goes wrong, say, what did I do wrong? What could I do better? What can I learn from this going forward? See that challenge, that problem, that issue as a gift, and think, this is a gift. What can I learn from it? And then implement that learning going forward. Because not every day is going to be plain sailing. We will have ups and downs. That's called life. But it's about learning from the ups and downs and changing our objectives, our view, our actions in line with that to make sure that we have a better outcome in terms of the future. Self belief and confidence, I think, is a hugely important trait. And lots of people out there will suffer from imposter syndrome, where they think they shouldn't be where they are. Others will not quite have the confidence for whatever reason, based on their own negative thought pattern in terms of they don't have enough education, they don't have the right upbringing, they don't have the right circle of friends, they don't have the right opportunities. It's a long list, and there's no point me talking through every single point on that particular list. But whatever that reason is, they always knock themselves back, and they don't take the chances, and they don't move forward with confidence. And I think confidence is something very internal, and it's just about applying yourself and having enough faith backing yourself. Because if you don't back yourself, why should somebody else back you? If you don't believe in yourself, why should somebody else believe you? And again, this is easier said than done, because everybody's had pretty much a different upbringing, and that's unique to them. So it's difficult and inappropriate, I'd say, for me to comment on one's personal experiences. But what I can say is, you can change and you can improve based on how committed and how driven you are to make that change. And if you are, you'll do it. If you aren't, you won't do it. But again, I think it was Henry Ford who said, whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. Now, some people argue that Henry Ford didn't say that, so whether he did or whether he didn't, either which way, it does make sense, and it is important. As I said earlier, no matter what happens in life, one thing that we're all guaranteed to face is setbacks, failures, challenges, hurdles. And what differentiates successful people from the not so successful is how resilient they are. Now, you're not going to be successful at everything. Not everything's going to go right. Whether you're making investments, whether you're running a business, whether you're working in a job, whatever you're doing, not everything is going to go your way. And when things don't go your way, depending on your attitude towards taking personal responsibility for that, and depending on how you react to that, will determine the outcome for you in the future. So setbacks are just an opportunity for you to say, let me have another go. Let me try things differently. Let me see why something didn't work, and what do I need to change now to try and increase and improve the chances of success. And then if you keep trying again and again and again, you will get there. But again, most people fall at the first hurdle. They try it, it doesn't work, and they say, oh, this thing doesn't work. But it's not that that thing doesn't work. It's that that person was unable to make that thing work. So you just got to find a different way of making it work. And that obviously depends on how resilient you are. Linked with that, resilience is hard work. So speak to any person that you know who you deem to be successful, and they'll say to you, I've had to work extremely hard. I've got a strong work ethic, and I show up and I work harder than my peers, and I put more effort in today than I did yesterday, than I did the week before, the year before, so on and so forth. And hard work, gives results, period, full stop, guaranteed. But the amount of hard work that you're willing to put in will determine your outcome, and that depends on how motivated you are. And like I said to you, success leaves clues, and Kieron and I have talked about this a lot in the past. So you look at people who are successful, whether you listen to their interviews, whether you read their biographies, autobiographies, their articles, so on and so forth. You hear them speak at an event. Pretty much every single person in a roundabout way, when asked, will say that they've had to work extremely hard to get to where they want to be, or where they are. So that is a very clear indication from my point of view that to achieve what you want to do, you've got to work hard, and you've got to be resilient, and you've got to have good habits. You've got to have a clear focus. You have to nail the basics. You've got to take personal responsibility, okay, for the things that have happened in your life, be it positive, negative, upsides, downsides, and you've got to be resilient. And all of these things, I mean, it seems like a long list, and I've got plenty more for you, by the way, and in this episode. But these things require effort, and if you put the effort in, you'll get the results. If you don't, you won't. And again, Kieron and I have both said this before. Making money and making excuses is mutually exclusive. You're doing one or the other, so it's up to you which one you do. But that takes us nicely to the halfway mark. Just going to go for a very short break. Join me after the break, where I will share with you more traits which you ought to know about and you should implement. See you after the break.
Stay tuned to Salam Radio after this short ad break.
ये खुद को कोविड-19 और फ्लू से बचाने का वक्त है। अगर आप या खानदान के किसी दूसरे फर्द को इस मौसम सरमा की वैक्सीन लगनी है, तो आप अपॉइंटमेंट बुक करवा सकते हैं या ऑनलाइन वॉक इन क्लिनिक तलाश कर सकते हैं। बस कोविड और फ्लू वैक्सीन पीटरब्रा सर्च करें। अगर आपको इससे पहले भी कोविड-19 या फ्लू वैक्सीन लग चुकी है, खा एक दफा ही या इससे ज्यादा, तब भी इसे दोबारा लगाना और महफूज रहना इस वक्त जरूरी है। लिहाजा मजीद जानने के लिए बस आपको ऑनलाइन तलाश करना है कोविड और फ्लू वैक्सीन पीटरब्रा।
Attention foodies! Discover a world of flavours at Pack Foods, the largest ethnic supermarket in Peterborough. Shop our vast selection of authentic ingredients from around the globe, including spices, marinated fish and meats, and exotic fruits at incredibly low prices. And the best part? We offer free parking. No more hunting for a spot. Come visit us today and explore the incredible range of flavours at Pack Foods, 232 Lincoln Road.
Bite into something wonderfully tasty at Big Mouth, 349 Lincoln Road in Peterborough. Eating in, for takeaway or delivery, Big Mouth now have a delicious new menu full of all your favourites. Crispy fried chicken, juicy smashed burgers, finger-licking peri-peri chicken, handmade pizzas, quality doner meat and so much more. So visit the family-friendly Big Mouth restaurant for fantastically fresh food. Call 01733 201020 or visit getbigmouthonline.com.
Could you spare a few hours each month to provide support to people who are going through tough times? If so, Peterborough Samaritans are looking for volunteers who are empathetic and open-minded, and we'd love to hear from you. We run regular information sessions where you can find out more about what it means to volunteer for Samaritans. If you are at least 18 years of age and would like to know more, please email volunteer@peterboroughsamaritans.org.
Fancy the true taste of Middle Eastern Kurdish food? Asia Restaurant gives you the unique fusion of flavours from Turkey, Iraq, Syria and Iran. Eat in at 5 Fitzwilliam Street, Peterborough, PE1 2RU. Or order through Just Eat, Uber Eats or order through our website, asiarestaurant.co.uk. Call us on 01733 562 530. Asia Restaurant, the true taste of the Middle East.
Are you looking for a career where you can make a difference? At Cross Keys Homes, we work with our local communities to create opportunities that change lives. We're looking for enthusiastic, talented people to join our team, from apprenticeships to senior management positions. Cross Keys Homes can support your development while you enjoy great employee benefits. There are so many opportunities for you to shine. Apply to join the Cross Keys Homes team at crosskeyshomes.co.uk.
Cambridgeshire, this is Salam Radio.
Assalamu alaikum, good evening, and welcome back if you were with me in the first half, and thank you for joining if you've just tuned in. You're listening to Wealth Made Simple on Salam Radio 106.2 FM. And as I say every single week, we would love to have your participation and engagement. And to do so, you can call us on 01733 602 133. You can text us on 07411 191 062, or comment on any of the live streams on Facebook, YouTube, X, formerly Twitter, or Twitch. So share your observations, ask questions, agree, disagree, share a different point of view. Absolutely fine, because all of that is healthy for learning. And this week on Wealth Made Simple, I'm sharing with you the key habits and traits of successful and wealthy people. As I've just mentioned a few seconds ago, what's really important is that successful and wealthy people are happy to agree to disagree. So they aren't always looking for people to surround themselves who are like sheep and who agree with them. They want to hear different points of view and different perspectives, so they can challenge their own mindset, they can challenge their own opinions, views, thoughts, and see things differently. And yet most people will say, oh, but that leads to a debate or argument, and I don't want to argue. Well, it depends how you see things. Are you having a discussion to see a different point of view, or to gauge, understand, appreciate, recognize, acknowledge a different point of view? Or are you looking to talk to somebody else and get them to see and do things how you do them? Because if you force your own views on other people, others will be more resistant. If you share your view and acknowledge that there are different ways of doing things and take on board their view, you'll learn and improve, so will they. So successful people have an open mind and understand they don't know everything. They also understand they never will know everything, and that every day is a school day and every day is for learning. With that, these people also value their time. So they won't sit there and have pointless debates and arguments, be it physically, face to face, okay, or through an online platform or social media, etc., because they know that that's a waste of their time. These people understand that time is a precious resource. Once gone, can't come back, and nobody can make it come back. And they have a very clear emphasis on productivity and efficiency, both for themselves and their team members. Because once you've lost a minute or an hour or a day, that's it, it's gone. It's never going to come back. And the older you get, the more that you appreciate and the more you recognize and the more you value these things. So whatever time that you allot to your work every single week, make sure that you can get as much juice out of that time as possible. By juice, I mean, when you're squeezing that lemon and getting every final or last drop from it, that's what you should do with your time as well. Say, how can I be as productive as I can in the time that I've allocated to doing the things that I want to do? And then obviously there's finding efficiencies, and there's finding ways to be more effective, and then there's obviously then finding people who can work with you and delegating to them. But value, because if you value your time, then others will value your time as well, and you'll value others' time. If you don't value your own time, then you'll be sat there and talking to people about random conversations and different things, and you won't be focused on achieving your goals. And if you meet, the more successful somebody is, the more that you'll see they're more focused on their time. So if someone's extremely wealthy and extremely successful, if you meet with them, they might give you half an hour of their time, 15 minutes of their time, 10 minutes of their time, so on and so forth. They'll give you less. The people who are less successful tend to, in their mind, have more time on their hands, so they'll give you 2 hours. And what's interesting is this, and I've done this exercise many a time, whether I allocate half an hour for a meeting, an hour or an hour and a half, okay, I always tend to fill that with whatever we want to talk about. By that, what I mean is, if I allocate an hour and have 3 agenda points. We'll sit there for an hour and talk about those 3 agenda points and maybe some other random things in between. If I assign half an hour to that, we'll still get everything covered in half an hour, but there'll be less random conversations and they'll be more focused. So now I keep the time tighter, shorter, so we're all focused because we know we've got half an hour, so we've got stuff to talk about and we better get on with it. So I build less slack time and more focus time. And that's what successful people do, because they value their time and they want to get the most out of every single hour, every single day, every single week. And you and I ought to do the same every single day, because it's incredibly important. The wealthier somebody becomes, generally speaking, the more you'll see, and this, again, no one statement applies to everybody, but generally what you'll see is those people have avoided single income reliance. So they've diversified their income source, and they don't have one source of income. And again, you'll have heard me talk before about the number one being the most dangerous word number in business. So having one main customer, having one source of income, having one main product or service, having one way of marketing, having one key employee, having one of anything is dangerous, because when that one thing goes wrong or doesn't quite work, then you're scuppered. So you've got to have more than one. So diversifying and having different sources of income helps you to increase and improve your wealth quicker than anything else. Because if you think about it, let's say you've got a business and you're making, let's say, £50,000 profit per year, and then you create a sideline business. Let's say it's an online business where you're selling some products and you're generating £20,000 a year. If you're smart about it, the £50,000, and this is just an example, by the way, and this isn't going to work for everybody, so focus on the principle and concept as opposed to the figure. If the £50,000 is enough and adequate for you to maintain your lifestyle, then the £20,000, and let's forget the tax here because we're just keeping it simple. Let's say this is after tax. The £20,000, okay, as tempting as it is for you to spend that money, okay, by increasing your expenditure or buying lavish things or luxury things or buying a bigger house, so on and so forth, the successful people will say that £20,000 I'll reinvest and make that work hard for me, so I don't have to work as hard, so I can increase the return on investment and the positive cash flow that I get every day, week, month, year, so on and so forth. Whereas the majority will say, I've got 20 grand more coming in the year, let me go on an additional holiday, let me go on a bigger, better holiday, let me upgrade my car, let me buy expensive clothes, so on and so forth. As tempting as that is, successful people believe in delayed gratification, and they believe, okay, in paying it forward. Whereas those who aren't as successful just want to spend every penny that they have and live for today, and let's not worry about tomorrow because we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. And I think that's not a good place for you to be. So think of creating a second or additional source of revenue and income. And this can complement your existing business, or it can be totally different. And remember, if you think, I don't have the time. Well, if you've got that, using the example as I shared earlier, if you've got that £20,000 coming in on top of your main business, well, you can then do a joint venture. You can be a silent partner. You can be an investor, and you can help somebody else set up in business and say, give me, let's say, a 20% share, and I'll invest X amount to help it going, and I'll also give you some working capital. And in return, obviously, I own part of the business, and that will give you a regular return. So you don't have to do everything yourself. There are smarter ways to leverage your time and to also leverage the capital that you have. So think about how you can do that. Another important trait is practicing gratitude. So this is maintaining a mindset of gratitude towards other people, towards your situation, towards whether if you believe in a higher being, towards the higher being, towards your mentors, towards your teachers, towards your gurus, towards your parents, to your family, and saying thank you more often than you ought to. And recognizing when other people go out of their way to help and support you. See, we're all pretty good at, by the way, picking faults in other people. We're all good at complaining, moaning when things don't go right with our team members and the people around us. We're not so good at praising other people, giving them credit, and sometimes give them more credit than they due, and thanking them. So balance it out. Observe yourself and cut yourself out. For every time you say thank you, how often do you moan and complain? And see what that proportion is, and then tip the balance and change it, and make gratitude more important. Because the people who are grateful are the ones who recognize that they don't know everything, are the ones who recognize that they need support and input from other people, are the ones who recognize and value input from other people. And when you recognize input and value from other people, people are willing to go the extra mile for you. So personal responsibility, so very simply, which we just shared earlier on, take responsibility for everything and point the finger at yourself when things go wrong. When things go right, be grateful and give the credit to somebody else. I think it was Zig Ziglar who said, we can achieve anything in life so long as we don't care who gets the credit. So give the credit away, and in return, get people's appreciation, value them, they'll do more for you. It's a very simple exchange and formula. Something else which I think you ought to do on a regular basis is generate ideas and generate new ideas. So different people do it different ways. I've seen some people say, every day I want to generate 10 new ideas which will help me become creative and innovative. Others will get their team members to do it. Others will say one idea a day, one a week, one a month. Or sometimes they'll focus on different departments and different areas of their life and different areas of their business, different areas of their relationships, so on and so forth. But generates new ideas and then implement them and try them out. And lo and behold, what you'll find is most of the ideas that you generate, probably won't work. But in between them, there'll be some that do work and will be a mini game changer. But you only learn that and you only get that by implementing and coming up with ideas. And again, you don't have to have all the ideas. You can talk to people. So I do this quite often, by the way, and I'm happy to admit it. Whether I'm on a train or a plane or a restaurant or waiting somewhere, I'll always try my best to make an effort to talk to other people. Okay, and through that, as you talk, and depending on how long you're talking to them for, I always tend to generate at least one idea by listening to their stories, by listening to what they do, by being interested in them. And that particular strategy, if I call it a strategy or approach, okay, alone gives me enough ideas every single year, okay, to implement in my business, which is more than sufficient. While I'm on the topic of talking to people, successful people observe what's called active listening. So they pay attention to when somebody else is talking, and they tune in and they listen attentively. Now, a good way of doing this, and this requires practice, by the way, if you want to observe active listening, what you do is when someone's talking to you, repeat what they are saying to you in your head. So as they are talking, you're a couple of seconds behind them, repeating exactly what they are saying. And what that will do is help you to focus. Initially it's hard because we're obviously used to just listening and looking at people, whereas when you're doing that, then you're focusing, partly listening to them and partly obviously following what they're saying in your mind by being a couple of seconds behind them. But once you get used to it, what you'll see is you pay more attention, you listen more, you're more engaging, you ask more questions, you ask better questions, you retain more information, and the other person can see that you are attentive and you're interested in them, and you are acknowledging what they're saying, therefore, they think you're an interesting person. They're happy to talk to you again. They're happy to share ideas with you, and you build a better relationship. The worst thing you can do is be sat in a room, okay, and not be in the room. And your mind is wandering somewhere else, and you're thinking about something else, and someone's talking to you. Because believe me, okay, most people know when someone's not in the room. The body language gives it away. The lack of eye contact gives it away. The lack of enthusiasm, the lack of engagement gives it away. So practicing active listening is very important because it's going to help you come across as being interested in others. If you're interested in others, others will be interested in you. Successful people will also challenge themselves, and they'll go beyond what they think they can achieve, and they'll push themselves. Because remember, you and I don't compete with anybody else. We're competing with and against ourselves. And that's based on whatever challenges we set for ourselves, whatever belief we have about what we can achieve, whatever goals we set. So push yourself to go that extra yard. Because if you keep pushing, and you'll go through growth, you'll go through pain, you'll go through challenges, you'll go through hurdles. But when you look back after a year, 2, 3, 4, 5, so on and so forth, you'll find you've become a very different person, both in terms of mindset and in terms of physical achievement and the way that you see and do things. In terms of challenging yourself, also learn to live in the future. Way too many people live in the past, and they carry too much, baggage, excess baggage. And the minute you talk to them, it's all doom and gloom, and they talk about how the world's an unfair place and how they've been cheated and how life just isn't fair. And truth be told, most of us don't want to talk to those type of people most of the time, because we tend to think they are miserable and that they just don't believe in themselves and that they bring us down. So we want to have happy conversations. We want to have productive conversations. Now, of course, sometimes somebody's going through a hard time, and I get that, and we're there to support them. And they'll talk about how things are going wrong, and you put your arm around them and you support them. Absolutely fine. But someone who has a consistent habit, always, moaning and groaning, aren't exactly going to be the life of the party, and people aren't exactly going to queue up to meet them and see them. So when you live in the future, then you focus less on the past, and the mistakes and how things have gone wrong, and those are for learning. But the future is for living, because that's the only thing that you can influence. Can't go back and change anything. Go forward and change things and make sure you don't repeat the same mistakes and do the things that you should not have done. So don't do the things that you should have done, and do the things that you ought to do. So live in the future. Make tomorrow your best day, and the day after your best day. So your best day never comes, because your best day is always to come. Because if you already had your best day, then what's the point of carrying on? Right? Because it's over, then it's downhill. So always see the next day as your best day, and you'd keep approaching life like that. So live in the future. Something which has helped me a lot over the past is reading daily. And you'll see successful people, whether it's Warren Buffett or others, they read daily, and they read on different things, by the way. So this could be on personal development, this could be on history, this could be on a particular person, this could be on a particular place, this could be something we do with business, it could be fiction, non-fiction, so on and so forth. All depends on what you like, but reading is a brilliant habit. Opens your mind, changes your perspective, and books, I believe, are your best friend. Because one, they don't answer back. Two, they are giving you huge value for your learning and development. And life is about gaining an education. It's about lifelong learning. It's about going on a journey. And again, I talked earlier about your strengths. Look at your weaknesses, and if you want to improve on those weaknesses and make them strengths, or at least make them less of a weakness, then read on those topics. So if you're not a good communicator, read books on communicating. If you're not good at writing, read books on how to become a better writer. If you're not good at relationships, read books on how to improve relationships or how to be a better manager, how to be a better person. Lots of literature exists out there, and make use of it. Why wouldn't you? I mean, it's obvious, isn't it? Successful people also avoid gambling. And this is a good one, by the way, because they understand that gambling is a zero-sum game. It by no means is an investment. You're doomed for failure. Most people lose money. So why would you enter into a game of losing money? Now, of course, this becomes a bad habit, and people then are stuck in that particular frame of mind. But avoid it in the first place. And if you are in that place, then seek support and get out of it. Because the only thing I think you should be gambling is, and if I use that loosely, by the way, is taking risks in your business, because that's like a gamble, but it's not a zero-sum game because you're trying things. But the physical act of gambling, going to a casino or elsewhere, is something that the majority of rich, successful, wealthy people avoid. Some of them obviously love to gamble, the majority don't. And I think it's a fantastic thing to avoid, because more often than not, unfortunately, I've seen it end in tears for people where they lose their livelihoods, they lose the will to live, they lose their family, they lose their relationships, and it does end up in tears. So avoid that at all costs. Successful people also focus on regular exercise and eating healthy foods. So those two things I think you ought to do. And even if exercise for you means going for a walk, I think it's one of the best things, because some of the greatest conversations that I have had and some of the best ideas that have come to me or to me through talking to other people is when we've gone for a walk. And most people think I don't walk much. I probably don't, but I do walk enough when I need to, just to keep my mind fresh. And I do more walking on holiday than I do when I'm at work, because there's less time, because my time's filled with other productive things that I need to do. But exercise, and whether it's going to the gym, whether it's walking, running, or doing whatever you need to do, exercising mentally and physically is extremely important, as is eating healthy food. Living below your means is something I've talked about a lot. Wealthy people participate and do this better than most others, okay? Because when you live below your means, you'll have enough to save for a rainy pot, you'll have enough to invest, you'll have delayed gratification, you'll know that you have enough, month left after, you'll have enough money left after the month, as opposed to having more month left after the money. And again, people find this hard. If they earn more money, they want to spend more. It's the law of diminishing returns in a roundabout way. But you need to avoid that temptation and think, I've worked harder, I've increased my income, increased my revenue, increased my profit, increased my net salary, so on and so forth, whatever it may be. Now, the extra, how can I make that extra work extra hard for me? Whereas most people, like I said, will spend it. So live well below your means, both in terms of the house that you have, the car that you have, the holidays you go on, how much you eat out, how much you spend on clothes, how much you spend on subscriptions, so on and so forth. Keep it tight. Because budgeting is extremely important. Successful people budget better than most of the people. Why? Because they understand the importance of this. They know they've got to manage their money properly. They know they've got to manage their finances properly. They know how quickly money can disappear into invisible costs. So they keep a budget, and they track their personal wealth and through their budgets as well, and add to it. Because if you don't have a budget, then you're just money comes in, you're spending it. But if you have a budget, our budget for eating out as a family, for example, This is my personal budget. I'm saying you could say to yourself, your budget for eating out as a family every month is, let's say, £100 or £150, or more or less, depending on what your income is, and then you stick to it. And every time there's an additional takeaway to order, whether it's Uber, Just Eat, an online app, or a phone call, or going around to the local takeaway to buy food, but this is not within the budget, and you might think that's too disciplined or too prescriptive, but if you want to achieve things, then you've got to set rules and ground rules and boundaries and parameters and non-negotiables. And it might sound dull and boring, but that's what works. But if you don't, and you just go, you're blasé and gung ho, then you're not going to be as successful. And wealth is a frame of mind. It's about attitude and behaviors. I hope you enjoyed that. I've given you a lot to do. Pick one or two or three things from there, implement them, and keep me posted. Until next week, take good care. Bye for now.
You're listening to